Hello, and welcome to Voice of Rio Grande. I'm Dr. Donna Mitchell, Dean of the College of Professional and Technical Studies, with my co-host, Dr. Heather Duda, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Donna. How are you?
I'm well on this beautiful day.
Isn't it gorgeous?
It is.
I can't believe it's such a beautiful, mild day for June.
I know. We've really had some cool weather.
We have, which has been good, because I don't know if you've gotten over to Wood Hall lately, but we've got a whole bunch of basketball courts set up in our parking lot and a whole bunch of kids playing basketball, so I'm glad that the weather's been kind to them this week.
I noticed that. I saw the basketball hoops. It looks like it's going to be a fun time.
It does, and they seem to be having a good time the few times I've been out and about in that area. And then once they leave, band camps come. So then it'll be a very musical campus for a while.
A very busy campus, and we also have the farmers market today.
That's right.
So even though it's summer, we are still booming with activity at Rio.
Absolutely, and don't forget, we do have classes as well.
I know. And we are gearing up for fall semester already.
Right, and so registration has opened here on campus. Students are thinking about coming in. Orientations are being held. The first two orientations have happened. The second one is in July, in a couple of weeks. Or I'm sorry, the third one.
Right.
In a couple of weeks, and before we know it, it'll be the fall semester and students will be starting with classes. And I don't know about some of the students in your area, but I know in my area they often have questions about what classes do I take?
They definitely do, and we have more and more high school students asking about College Credit Plus.
Yes.
And we're very fortunate to have Susan Haft with us today, who is going to talk to us.
Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hi, Susan. And you are the director of the New Student Advising Center,
That is correct,
among other things.
among other things.
Susan, I know you and I have been at Rio for a little over 5 years, right?
A little over, slightly
Plus,
over.
plus.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about what brought you to Rio and why you think our local high school and college students might find this a good place to come and learn?
Well, I think Rio Grande has the true mission of a community college and a university. We serve the students not only in our local area, but the students from the state, and we've got a place for students from beyond as well. We are small, but we offer all the advantages to an institution of higher learning, fully accredited classes, a wide realm of programs. We participate in the College Credit Plus program, which we're all going to talk about in a little bit more detail. Rio Grande can produce for a student a degree and an education that is comparable to any that they would earn anywhere and enables them to go into a job market fully qualified and competent. So I speak not only as a local girl out of Gallia Academy High School, but also as a Rio Grande graduate. And I've been here through a number of administrations and seen our evolution and continue again to believe in our mission and what we do. Fully supportive.
That's wonderful, and I agree that our students can get a wonderful education at Rio. I know many of the students who have been in my classes over the years, and students who I've gotten to know have gone on for graduate work in many of the areas, higher education institutions and very prestigious colleges, and we have attorneys and physicians and nurse practitioners and a lot of teachers and people who are doing great, great work.
I would agree. I think we're seeing more women go in the sciences, and we're fully able now with our chemistry major to promote those women in our STEM programs. And I'll put in a plug for the social work program. Kudos to them and what they produce there. The students are able to come into these programs and step by step evolve and mature and become not only better educated, but more mature and fully professional. And it's really wonderful to see that maturation process happen. And again, with the CCPs, we're now able to see this growth process, intellectually, physical, maturity-wise, emotional maturity, even sooner. Really see a tremendous amount of growth. And it's something that I'm pleased to be a part of.
Some of our viewers may not know what CCP is, what the letters stand for, and what all this entails. And some people may not even know whether or not their child or whether they themselves might be eligible. Could you tell us a little bit about what CCP is?
Well, a little bit about the history of CCP. This program began in 1989, and some folks may still know it as PSEO, Post-Secondary Education Options, and sometimes I still slip and call it PSEO. But it is now College Credit Plus. It evolved in 2015, and with that change that year, we also dropped it back so that we could take junior high students as well if they test and are shown to be what we call college ready. And that's the key term right there, college ready. It's not only an academic term, but there's a big emotional and maturity component to that as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about what a student who is college ready, what they possess that will make them hopefully successful in the program?
Our testing includes minimum scores, sub-scores on the American College Test or the ACT. Sometimes I laugh because we call it the ACT test, and that would be the ACT American College Test.
We're being redundant.
So I try to catch myself. We use the ACT, and we also use placement testing. Placement testing is more internal, and we test our students in math and also their writing ability. And we use the results of their writing ability to place them in their English classes, their composition classes.
So do you think that someone who comes in and maybe they test into the proper English, they have the proper writing skills that we think are college ready, and math skills, is there anything else, do you think, that would make them successful that they would also possess?
I think and this is where I think the parents' role is especially crucial. I think the student has to come in with a level of maturity that will enable them to be successful sitting in a classroom of very diverse students. And that would mean students from those areas that we talked about earlier. Diversity in terms of age, diversity in terms of mindset, whether or not the student is open-minded, whether or not the student is ready to be exposed to many different schools of thought, which is part of a college environment. Being exposed to ideas that are different than those that you may have heard at home and in your high school classrooms. So they need to be a little bit more broad-minded. I think CCP is a wonderful opportunity for that student who is willing to embrace the college environment. And I think that is, again, a big part of what we're talking about in terms of college readiness. It's simply not academic.
So what does CCP entail? If I were a CCP student, what would I expect to gain from that program?
There is a lot to be gained for the student primarily, for the parents, and that is that the student can earn, while they are still in high school, an associate degree. They can be better prepared to transition to an academic degree program. And keep in mind that when we're talking about these CCP students, the primary objective of CCP is, first of all, to meet the high school equivalencies. So we are most conscious to make sure that the student leaves no Carnegie units unearned. That's the top priority, that they earn what they would be earning if they were sitting in their high school classroom. The advantage then is that the student can leave us with a degree or with 2 years or 3 years or 4 years of college credit under their belt. Now they may choose to stay at Rio Grande, and many of them do, or they may choose to transition and transfer elsewhere. And we've had successes in all of those different areas.
And I'm sorry. I know we've had several students who have graduated from college before they actually graduated from high school.
We had 7 last year, and it's such a joy to see these students from the time that they begin the CCP program, at whatever age they determine to start, until they finish, they become so much more sure of themselves, so much more confident. For the most part, our CCP students are really, really on top of things and know exactly what they have to have and where they're going. And so, again, we did graduate 7 this past year, some of whom graduated from college before they graduated from high school.
I always think that's very exciting
I
for
think
the
it
students,
is.
for us, for their families.
I agree.
What's the cost associated with the CCP program
The
for the students?
For the students, they incur no cost unless they choose to go down to McDonald's during break. But everything is covered. The money for their education, what would be going toward their education, is funneled back to their home high school. So every CCP student that comes does have to be attached to a home high school.
We've talked about a lot of the positives as people are making the decision as to whether or not they, or if they're a parent or a guardian, they want their child to be part of the CCP program. Are there any, I don't want to say negatives because I don't think there are negatives of the program, but are there any concerns that a parent might want to take into consideration before deciding that their child should be in CCP?
That's a good question, and that's where we always start when advising the CCP students. It's all about parameters. If you have a student that is highly involved in high school activities and has a limited number of hours that they can be on our campus, and is participating in a lot of after-school activities, all of that needs to be taken into consideration. Why? Basically, it's because that student cannot be 2 places at one time. Right. So the student might be more likely to say, I can be in class until 2:30 and be back to my high school by 2:45 for football practice, and we really need that parent to say, no, we're not going to see you leave campus and go out on the highway and fly to get back to your high school. So we're thinking about not only what that student has to have for his senior, junior, sophomore, freshman year, but also what that student is involved in after school, be it choir, football, an after-school job. All of those things have to be taken into consideration. And so that's something that the parent often is aware of and can help counsel the student as to how their time is best spent. We always need to have that broad window of time in which to work. If we're filling in classes for a full-time student, we really need access to that full day up until about 2:30.
That makes sense.
So the student is always sure that they can, meet all their obligations. Realistically, we know that that may not always happen.
Well, we're going to take a short break. We're here with Susan Haft, Director of Student Advising Office here at Rio, and we'll be back in a moment to talk more about some of the curriculum needs of the CCP students.
All right, thanks.
Welcome back, and we're here with Susan Haft, and we're talking about CCP students and the CC program here at Rio. Before the break, we were talking a little bit about some considerations that parents should have and students should have. I was wondering about the curriculum. So a student has decided to be a CCP student. They're coming in, let's say they're a freshman or in high school. How do you sit down and work with that student to develop a good curriculum that'll see them through however long they want to be in the CC program and beyond?
We are always, Heather, going to start with the student's competency in English. And so, like I tell the student, Comp 1 is going to be the most fundamental class that you take. Everything, in terms of building blocks, that's where we're going to start. So the advantage to the CCP student now, as opposed to a couple years ago, is that if a student takes our Composition 1, English, basic English, they can take in a half a year what it would normally take them a full year to take in high school. So that equation boils down to 3 credit hours at Rio Grande equals 1 Carnegie unit at the high school. So that student in his or her first and second terms, fall and spring terms, can complete 2 of their units in English. So that's a tremendous advantage. In terms of time, the student can move along very quickly and complete all of those courses that they would need for high school. Most of the students come in having spoken with guidance and with the recommendation of the guidance counselor what that student needs to take. Math, of course, is probably second in terms of our placement of the student. We are looking at what the student is going to be majoring in after high school in terms of which direction they want to go, in terms of major, in terms of career, whether it be science-based, whether it be a liberal arts major. So for the student coming in, and again I'll say that these students are on top of things, they normally know what it is they're going to pursue career-wise, what their interests are in terms of a major, and so we have those parameters and those pathways to follow. We then fill in any other courses that that student would need. I always ask the student, if you were at the high school, what would you be taking this year? And then we try to align our coursework with what the student can take here. Now, when the student has met all of their requirements, they can really start enjoying and, well, not enjoy, hopefully they've been enjoying, but they can really start pursuing the courses that might align with their majors.
Great. So if I would be interested in a CCP course for my child, could I pursue that at maybe one of the branch campuses at Jackson or Meigs or MacArthur?
You sure can, yeah. Same opportunities are there.
So if a student, let's say a student from MacArthur is interested in CCP, but that student still wants to play football, if they could get their courses in MacArthur, it might be easier for them to continue some of their extracurricular activities and do their CCP.
It might be, depending on what the offerings were. They could take their whole schedule there. It also is beneficial for students who are not yet driving, because keep in mind, we do have some young ones, and they're not yet driving, or we witness their transition from non-driver to driver, which also is a milestone and is exciting. But we can align their schedule with what is most efficient, depending on what the offerings are, what the student needs, what the parent needs, and that sort of thing. Again, we're always thinking that we don't want to put that student on the road, on the highway, going back and forth any more than necessary.
And I think that's a real benefit. So that way students are still close to home and working on a college degree at the same time they're working on their high school diploma.
Many of the students request online, and because these students have demonstrated, again, college readiness, there are more options for them in terms of what they can take online. A lot of times students will, though, indicate that they do not want the online, they want the classroom. Students come to realize that the online class takes as much, if not more, discipline than the classroom class.
Absolutely. Now, what happens if a CCP student starts to get in trouble academically? What is available to them, and what do we do to reach out to them to say, hey, you know, we need to get you more academically focused in this class?
Our CCP coordinator, Taylor Knoll, through the admissions office, is the person who tracks the students' grades as well as advising. The CCP student has the same access to tutoring services as any other student. We often see our students in our Gateway to Success class, our orientation class, especially those students who are going to stay with Rio Grande post their high school graduation. So we are promoting those services that the student can take advantage of through Jenkins Center, the Learning Center, through the Math Lab, through additional classroom instruction, that sort of thing. Now, if the student should not do well academically in their class at the time that final grades are posted, guidance offices are alerted, conversations are held, a recommendation may be made that the student should not do CCP, possibly sit out for a period of time. It is a big learning situation in that the student, while a good student academically, still may not be prepared for the amount of study time and time spent outside of the classroom, and that's one of the biggest adjustments I think that the CCP student has. But the same resources are available to that student.
I think that's wonderful that they come here and they have access to the entire campus. And I don't know other people's experiences, but I know in my classes I rarely knew unless they self-identified and said, hey, I'm in high school or I'm a CCP student. I did not know as a faculty member. And so in my classes, you know, they were just students.
Just students.
Right. Now you said that tuition is taken care of, so they don't pay tuition. What about their books?
The student receives a waiver for their books, and then the books are turned back into the bookstore at the end of the semester. Basically, everything is covered for the student.
That's wonderful.
You can't beat that deal. You just can't.
No, no.
Do you anticipate, I know in the most recent couple of years that the age of the CCP program expanded, so you can do it for longer now. Do you anticipate seeing more students graduating with associate's degrees that have gone through the CCP program?
I think they will, and the thing that the student needs to keep in mind, and please broach this subject with us when they come in for advising, if that is your intention to pursue that degree, make that known to us as early in that process as possible that you want to pursue that degree, and if possible, what area you want to go in. The Associate in General Studies is the one that is most closely aligned with the student's high school equivalency, so the student can reach that one most easily. But we had students graduate with degrees in mathematics and other fields as well. So it really just takes a lot of good communication, probably like a lot of other processes. The better the communication, the more forthright the student is, and more verbal from the outset, the better the final product will be.
I know we had one student, and there may have been more, who was a CCP student who graduated with an associate in business just this last spring.
Exactly.
And I believe,
same situation.
I believe he was planning on going to Ohio State after graduation. So we can tailor that education to a major, but as you say, it takes a lot of planning on the student's part, because we first need to make sure that we satisfy the high school
We
requirements.
satisfy high school first, but then the student is welcome to explore, and there's a lot of communication not only with my office but with the faculty members. The faculty members are always excited when a student indicates an interest in their particular major. So it is a good conversation, good communication, and certainly to the student's advantage.
It seems to me that CCP is a team effort. It seems it's a team effort with your office, with the student, with the guidance counselor, and then perhaps with the chair of the school if the student wants to receive a bachelor's degree or an associate degree. Do you think down the road that the bachelor's degrees may even be an opportunity if somebody starts in middle school?
In terms of whether that will happen at Rio Grande, that remains to be seen because of the unique fee structure. But I will say that each year that we've participated in CCP, we have challenges and changes. And college readiness standards change, and what the student can take, and what testing, state testing for the high school is mandating. Certain schools want certain things. We know that certain material is covered on the test that they have to satisfy. So there are certain classes here that better meet that than others. This is constantly changing, and this is something that we need to stay aware of and in communication, especially with the guidance department. Yeah, the onus of this really is on the guidance, and that's why we insist that every schedule be taken back to the guidance office for further review. We don't want any student coming up on their high school graduation short of credits.
Right.
You know, we've been talking about how the CCP program can help a student achieve degrees in shorter times, but I just had a student who graduated, and she did CCP when she was still in high school, and it allowed her, she ended up staying here at Rio for coming to Rio and doing a four-year bachelor degree. But the credits she had already accumulated through CCP, PSEO, when she did it, allowed her to pick up a couple of minors that areas she was interested in, did not necessarily want to pursue a 4-year degree in, and it gave her more opportunity to add to her major and minor coursework. So I think that you know, there are so many benefits of being a CCP student.
And like you've just said, duplicate associate, because the general studies courses can satisfy multiple associate degrees. So with some planning, some creativity, and these students have that ability, it really is exciting for what they can achieve.
Do you have an idea of how many students may have taken advantage of the CCP program?
I have the figures for last year, and we had approximately 180 enrolled last year. We're currently getting ready for this year's group of students coming in. They do have to apply. Normally that is by April, And then they go through the testing process, and then we will see them the end of this month, July the 26th, for their orientation. And the reason we want to orient these students and request that this be mandatory is we're dealing with issues like the online learning and email setup and everything technical, and as well as academic. These technical aspects are really crucial to a student's success. So we want to make sure they get to take advantage of full instruction and how to set that up.
And that's a lot to learn for any student.
It is a lot to learn. It's
It
a lot
is.
of information.
Well, Susan, we really appreciate you coming and sharing the information about CCP. I think it's a wonderful program, and I'm happy so many of our area students are pursuing this, and hope that we even will grow that program in the future.
I hope so too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming and visiting.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of Voice of Rio.
See you next month.